I feel a little bit like a renegade today because I'm going to take a bit of a diversion from our discussion of the five remembrances. And I hope that's okay with you, but I want to share something that I'm becoming more interested in, and maybe you'll find it interesting too. I'm realizing more and more that the Buddha really was a genius, that he understood in a really detailed way how our brains work before there was any mapping of the brain or any fancy tests existed. He understood the working of the mind intimately. And we can see that in his teachings. So, in current day, we have, of course, developed lots of sophisticated ways to map and monitor brain activity in ways the Buddha couldn't even have imagined. And now there are all these efforts to try to bridge the gap between modern science and Buddhism. And this is something the Dalai Lama has convened a lot of meetings about, bringing neuroscientists and Buddhists together over the decades to explore this topic. I'm just dipping my toe into it myself, and I find it fascinating. Maybe some of you have heard of this man, Judson Brewer. He's a neuroscientist, a psychiatrist, and a meditator, and he heads up Brown University's Mindfulness Center. His major area of expertise is how habits are formed and how they can be changed. As his website says, Dr. Brewer is passionate about understanding how our brains work and how to use that knowledge to help people make deep, permanent changes in their lives with the goal of reducing suffering in the world at large. Some echoes of Buddhism there. So here on the Daily Sit, we often speak about our habits of mind. Those things we think or do or say automatically, reactively, without really thinking about them, and how they can sometimes get us into trouble. Dr. Brewer studies how these habits get created and perpetuated, and his findings confirm a lot of what we're learning through our practice. And they also offer, I find, a slightly different perspective that might deepen our understanding of ourselves and encourage us to practice with just a bit more kindness and care. I am clearly not a neuroscientist, so bear with me and let me keep this really simple. And if it interests you and you want to learn more, there's plenty online. He has a great TED Talk that explains his research really clearly. So, Dr. Brewer describes how the brain has been trained from early in our evolution by what he calls a reward learning system. Basically, there's a trigger, and the example he gives is that we're hungry and we see some food, and we respond by eating the food, and we get rewarded by the yummy taste. There's a trigger, a response, and a reward. See food, eat food, feel good. And these three steps are the basic mechanism that fuels all habits. It's so simple, and it makes sense. But it can get hijacked as our lives get more complex and more stressful. So here's an example that he gives. This same reward learning system kicks in anytime we feel bad or stressed out. If we've had a bad day, maybe we've had a hard conversation, and we feel like we need a little comfort. And we know that we feel good and have comfort after we eat. So when we feel bad, we eat. Instead of being triggered by a hunger signal, this same sequence is triggered by an emotional signal. It's an automatic learned response that's deep set in our system, and we repeat it whenever we feel bad. The brain thinks it's creating a reward, and it is in the very short term. But the results have gone a bit awry, and stress eating becomes a habit. So this same mechanism is at play for so many of our responses to stress, whether it's eating, drinking, smoking, worrying, getting lost in phone scrolling, or watching TV. And what Dr. Brewer suggests to break this chain is not willpower. Surprisingly to me, willpower doesn't work when we're stressed, because willpower is created in the thinking part of our brain, up here, the front cortex. And the front cortex turns off under stress. And that's when most of our bad habits occur. This habitual reaction is ingrained in us way below our conscious mind. And so our brain's willpower isn't effective to change the behavior. Understanding this is so helpful. It means we don't have to be so disappointed in ourselves for not being able to always follow through on our good intentions. And we don't need to be so harsh or chastise ourselves when our willpower fails. Willpower generated in our conscious mind can't keep the habitual pattern from arising, because the habit itself is coming from a deeper and less conscious place. Understanding this really helps to quiet the harsh, judgmental voices in my mind. And it lets me let go a bit of the efforting that's behind my willpower. And then kindness and compassion arise much more easily. Just that. I mean, what a gift. So what Brewer has found is that it's mindfulness that makes a difference. It's an embodied knowing that's deeper than the cognitive mind. Mindfulness, as we know, makes us curious. It asks, what's going on in here? How does this feel? And we can begin to understand more clearly the response to the habitual action. If we can see this and turn towards it, we can literally begin to recalibrate our brain and loosen those old habits. Dr. Brewer's been using mindfulness to help people change addictive behaviors, and one of his common examples is helping people quit smoking. When someone smokes in response to stress, thinking it will calm them, he guides the person to really notice what's going on. What is this experience of smoking? And their response is, it stinks. It tastes awful. And it doesn't really alleviate stress in the long term. So just using mindfulness and this model, he's had a huge success rate in getting people to quit. So the same mechanism, trigger, behavior, response, it fuels all habits of mind. And again, Dr. Brewer has used it very successfully to treat anxiety. In this case, the trigger for anxiety is uncertainty about something that feels unresolved. The behavior is to worry. to replay situations, to rehearse conversations. And the result or the reward is a brief sense of control that doesn't last, and so the process has to be repeated, just creating more anxiety. And when he works with people on this, it's not to control or resist their thoughts, but to find a way to notice them with mindfulness and then consciously step out of the thought loop. And you have to do it time and again. It's going to take practice to recalibrate our brains. But to notice it is how we begin. I can think of lots of examples in my life where this model is applicable. It's helpful both in letting go of what I call bad habits, unskillful ones, but also in creating more skillful habits. It's such a helpful adjunct to my meditation practice because it gives me another lens to consider, and one that invites in much more kindness and compassion as I can more easily let go of that wrestling in my brain and trust the deeper wisdom that arises from mindfulness. I'm really kind of humbled to think that the Buddha knew what modern science is now confirming by meticulously observing his own mind. As he said, I know many things, but I teach only one, and that is suffering and the end of suffering. And the underpinning of his teaching is mindfulness. He knew that unless we could see and feel clearly, we couldn't change. So our practice is at the heart of our ability to move towards more peace and ease. That sense of real curiosity about our experience allows us to bring our unconscious habits into our consciousness so we can respond more skillfully. Susan frequently counsels us to really notice when we experience a positive change in our behavior. Maybe it's a sense of calm when we might have been agitated in the past, or a restraint from some unskillful action. This is the fruit of our practice. Take the time to savor it. Judson Brewer's model highlights the importance of this. Notice what this good feeling feels like, because this will help us recalibrate our brains. This will make it more likely that the new behavior becomes a habit, a skillful and a welcome habit. So, thank you